After the last election, the Democrats said it was time to heal, H-E-A-L. But what they really meant was that it was time to heal, H-E-E-L. The rest of us are sitting here thinking, what the H-E-L-L? Sam Mittelstadt has an interesting article on the New American website entitled Unity versus Uniformity. In it, he writes, after President Biden's inaugural address, the left in America began echoing his call for unity. That sounds wonderful. Who doesn't want a unified country where we all get along? However, the phrase, I don't think that word means what you think it means, comes to mind. He adds, seeking unity is a mutual effort to find common ground and focus on those things in which we have a shared interest or goal. Unfortunately, those on the left calling for unity are also speaking about a need to reprogram Trump supporters. It seems as if their understanding of unity is being confused with uniformity and compliance with their worldview. It might be good here to critically drill down on what's happening on a sociological level. A good place to start is futurist Alvin Toffler's The Third Wave. In it, he describes 3 waves of civilization. He begins wave 1 in the agrarian period, when human beings discovered farming. According to Aristotle, republics usually appear in countries of farmers. Aristotle wrote in Politics, now, there are 2 occasions for why there are so many republics. One of which is that which we have already mentioned, namely there being different sorts of people, for in one country the majority are farmers. This was true of the Roman Republic too. Thomas Madden in Empires of Trust writes, the early Romans were farmers, living in a frontier world in which each family looked after its own interests and well-being. Cato the Elder said that the highest compliment that could be paid a Roman was not that he was wealthy or had high status, but simply that he was a good husbandman, a good farmer. When America was founded in 1776, 92% of the population was employed in farming or fields related to farming. The founding fathers were all gentlemen farmers. Aristotle said that because farms were decentralized, that the government that farmers would make would be decentralized as well. Just to go back to Alvin Toffler, he described this as a first-wave society. Second-wave societies were what we would call societies that rose up after the Industrial Revolution when factories would come online. Unlike farms, factories are not decentralized. If someone messes up on a farm, it doesn't affect any of the other surrounding farms. However, if you mess up on an assembly line in a factory, it messes up everything else on up the line. So in the industrial system, a managerial bureaucracy evolved. It was no longer the bottom-up rule of a republic, but the top-down rule of a corporation. Unfortunately, this factory system didn't stay in the factories. It crept out into the rest of society, infecting government. Just as a factory has a hierarchy of bureaucrats, so the government began to centralize and acquire a managing bureaucracy that we call the deep state. Toffler writes, the 6 principles of the second wave are standardization, specialization, synchronization, concentration, maximization, and centralization. These principles produce some of the biggest, most rigid, most powerful bureaucratic organizations the world had ever seen. I say all this because Sam Mittelstadt observed the fact that social justice warriors don't seem to want actual unity. What they want is standardization. I was talking to a professor who wanted to remake a series of conferences that were popular back in the 1940s, but he wanted to update it. He fretted that there might be too many people there of European extraction. He wanted more diversity than existed in 1940. We don't want it to be a bunch of old white guys, said the white professor. Then it occurred to me. Those conferences were successful because they brought together thinkers and scientists from across the academic spectrum in 1940. So what you had was a bunch of people who might have looked the same, but they all thought differently. Today what people want is a bunch of people who look different, but think exactly the same. Their thirst for standardization is very much an artifact of a second-wave industrial society. So if you think about it, the sociological turmoil that we're seeing today is not so much based on liberal versus conservative or Democrat versus Republican, so much as first-wave people versus second-wave people, individuals rooted in the original setup of a republic versus people who grew up in a highly centralized industrial America of the modern era. The social justice warrior doesn't respect or understand diversity, ironically. For all their pretenses of wanting diversity, they seem pathologically dedicated to standardizing all humans. No races, no genders, no separate cultures or religions. Monoculture, a glorious paradise of cages, as Mexican poet Octavio Paz puts it, with no distinctions of any kind to distinguish one person from the next. They fundamentally don't understand the Founding Fathers purposely setting up a decentralized system based on ancient Greece. The ancient Greeks had no capital. Hellas was a bunch of autonomous city-states running very different governments. After Alexander the Great took over the Hellenic world, however, he centralized everything, like traditional Middle Eastern emperors whom he admired. Instantly, Corruption set in as a capital was established and the people were taxed to pay for it. An oligarchy grew up, fed by the new money flows. To the Greeks, the word for education was derived from the same word for leisure, skole. It's where we get the word school from. The more leisure they had, the more they worked on their human capital, the more inventions they created, the more plays they wrote, the more philosophy they developed. With centralization, though, the people were taxed more and more. To pay for ever-increasing taxes, they had less leisure time, because now they had to work a lot more. As a result, the Greeks, who were once a middle-class society allowed to keep their own wages, were now taxed into poverty. They worked so much that they stopped having the leisure time to innovate, and the Greek world collapsed. The founding fathers in America were skeptical of centralization for this reason. So they wanted separate states like mini governmental laboratories all competing with each other. Competition, they felt, made for a better system. If one state innovated something new and it worked, others could then copy it. If it did something bad, then the damage was isolated. By standardizing everything and taking all local rule away, all local autonomy, you create a lumbering system that doesn't innovate anymore because it doesn't compete. And if something bad happens, the whole system suffers. Like removing the airlocks from a submarine. If one area springs a leak, you can no longer spin a valve and seal off the compartment. The whole thing floods. This is the danger of globalization, of monopoly. And as everyone knows, monopolies aren't exactly known for their efficiencies and innovations. Luckily, Toffler says that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. He describes how technology is leading to a third wave. In this new setup, things will become decentralized again, like they were before the Industrial Revolution. Power will shift away from Washington, D.C. and filter back to the states. He said that these social changes will be driven by technology, like the internet, for instance. Think about how in the past you had to go to a nation's capital to buy or sell. That's where the stock market was, the oil bourse, the fashion district, and so forth. Today, because of things like eBay, you can buy and sell in your pajamas from your home. You don't have to go to a central hub. Soon, factories won't exist overseas, but due to 3D printing, you'll be able to get products closer to home. And not just generic one-size-fits-all products, but products tailored to you. The future doesn't belong to standardization and robot-like conformity. The whole world as we knew it since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution is about to change. We're about to enter a third wave. And when that happens, social justice warriors can wave bye-bye.
The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men, with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
The elites stink. They hate it when we push their buttons. Help us to push their buttons by pushing our buttons, the like and subscribe buttons. Also, don't forget about the newamerican.com. Think of the magazine less as a newspaper than as a newspaper. You know, like the Greek nous, knowledge. Note to self, multilingual Greek puns don't work.